An 8-year-old gave half her sandwich to an elderly woman trembling with hunger. That woman made a phone call she'd avoided for 32 years, to her son, a feared Mafia boss. The next morning, he showed up at the little girl's apartment, and the entire neighborhood thought their lives were over. The subway entrance smelled like rain and forgotten dreams. Mia clutched her mother's hand as they climbed the concrete steps, her small backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Inside her lunchbox was half a peanut butter sandwich, saved from school because she wasn't that hungry. Or maybe because something in her 8-year-old heart knew she'd need it for something important. "Mia, hurry up. We're already late," her mother said, voice tight with exhaustion. Sarah worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford to sound anything but tired. That's when Mia saw her. An old woman sat on the cold steps near the railing, so still she could have been a statue. Her coat was too thin for November, and her hands, wrinkled like crumpled paper, trembled as they gripped a torn plastic bag. But it was her eyes that stopped Mia cold. They were empty, not sad, not angry.
Just gone.
Like nobody had looked into them for a very long time. "Mama, wait."
Mia, no.
"We don't have time." Sarah's grip tightened, pulling her forward. But Mia had already slipped her hand free. She darted back down 3 steps, her sneakers squeaking against wet concrete. Her mother called after her, but Mia wasn't listening anymore. She was already kneeling beside the woman, unzipping her lunchbox with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy. "Here," Mia said, holding out the sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. "You can have this." The old woman's head turned slowly, as if movement hurt. Up close, her face was a map of suffering, deep lines carved by years of something Mia didn't have words for yet. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "It's peanut butter," Mia added helpfully. "I already ate the other half, but this part is really good. I promise." For a long moment, nothing happened. The city noise, honking cars, distant sirens, someone shouting about train delays, faded into background static. Then, with shaking hands, the old woman reached out and took the sandwich. Her fingers brushed Mia's palm. They were ice cold. "Thank you," the woman whispered, and something shifted in those empty eyes. Something that looked almost like tears, but older, heavier. "This reminds me of someone I lost." Mia tilted her head.
Who?
The woman's throat worked, swallowing something that might have been grief or regret or both.
A boy.
"A long time ago. He used to share his food with stray dogs." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Before the world made him forget how to be kind."
Mia.
Sarah was beside them now, breathless and annoyed. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. She doesn't understand. We really can't." "Your daughter has a beautiful soul," the old woman interrupted, still staring at Mia with an intensity that made Sarah uncomfortable. "Guard it carefully. The world breaks beautiful things." Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the words. By the time she recovered, Mia was already waving goodbye, and the old woman was unwrapping the sandwich with trembling reverence, as if it were made of gold instead of peanut butter and grocery store bread. They caught their train with seconds to spare. Mia pressed her face against the window, watching the city lights blur into ribbons of color. She didn't know why, but her chest felt warm. Like she'd done something that mattered, even if it was small, even if nobody else would ever know about it. "That was sweet of you," Sarah finally said, her voice softer now. "But baby, we can't save everyone. You understand that, right?" Mia nodded, but she wasn't sure she believed it. Behind them, 3 stops away, the old woman sat alone on those cold subway steps and ate every bite of that sandwich. Each chew was deliberate, painful, as if she'd forgotten how her jaw worked. When she finished, she folded the aluminum foil into a small square and tucked it into her coat pocket. Then she sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at nothing. Finally, as the evening crowds thinned and the temperature dropped, she stood. Her knees cracked like breaking branches. She moved slowly through the streets, invisible to the rushing commuters, until she reached a building that should have been condemned years ago. 4th floor.
No elevator.
Each step in negotiation with gravity. Her room was barely large enough for a mattress and a chair. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering with a sound like dying insects. On the table beside her pillow sat a photograph in a cracked frame, the only possession that mattered. She picked it up with both hands. The photo was old, faded to sepia tones. In it, a young boy, maybe 10 years old, stood beside her. He was smiling, actually smiling, before the streets taught him that smiles were weakness. Before hunger turned to anger, and anger turned to something worse. Victor, she whispered to the photograph, the name scraping out of her like a confession. I met someone today who reminded me of you, of who you used to be. Her hand moved to the table drawer. Inside was a flip phone, ancient, barely functional, held together with tape. She bought it 3 years ago with money saved from collecting cans. She'd programmed one number into it. She'd never had the courage to call. Until now. Her thumb hovered over the green button. 32 years. That's how long it had been since she'd heard his voice. Since the day he told her he didn't need a mother anymore. Since he chose a different family, one built on fear and blood instead of love. The sandwich wrapper crinkled in her pocket. That little girl didn't hesitate, she thought. She didn't count the cost. She just
gave.
The woman pressed the button. The phone rang once.
Twice.
3 times. Then a voice answered. Deep, controlled, dangerous. Who is this? She closed her eyes. Victor, she breathed. It's me. It's your mother. The silence on the other end was so complete, so total, that for a moment she thought the call had dropped. Then, quietly, almost childlike, Mama? And somewhere across the city, in an office where men paid fortunes to never hear the word no, a mafia boss's hands began to shake. The phone nearly slipped from Victor Leone's hand. He stood frozen behind his mahogany desk, a man who'd ordered executions over breakfast, who'd burned buildings for lesser insults, who hadn't flinched when a rival put a gun to his head 5 years ago. But this single word from a voice he'd buried in the deepest corner of his memory. It shattered him. Mama, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Around him, the office fell silent. Marcus, his right hand, stopped mid-sentence in his report about the dockyard shipment. 2 other men, discussing territory disputes near the window, went quiet. Everyone stared. Nobody had ever heard Victor Leone sound afraid. Yes, baby. It's me. Her voice cracked with emotion, and Victor could hear everything she wasn't saying. The years, the loneliness, the regret that had grown between them like a wall made of choices he couldn't take back. Where are you? The question came out harder than he intended, decades of armor snapping back into place. Are you hurt? Did someone?
No, no.
Nothing like that, she coughed, a wet rattling sound that made Victor's jaw clench.
I'm okay.
I needed to tell you something. About today. Victor waved his hand sharply. Marcus understood immediately. Within seconds, the office emptied. The heavy door clicked shut, leaving Victor alone with a ghost on the phone and 32 years of silence pressing down on his chest. I'm listening, he said, sinking into his chair. I met a little girl today. At the subway entrance near 10th Street, his mother's voice grew stronger, more animated. I was hungry, Victor. So hungry I couldn't remember what food tasted like anymore. And this child, she couldn't have been older than 8. She gave me her sandwich. Victor's hand tightened around the phone. Which subway? 10th and what? That's not the point. Which intersection, Mama? His voice had gone cold, professional. He was already thinking about surveillance cameras, witnesses, tracking down whoever let his mother sit starving on a street corner. Victor, stop, she said it the way she used to when he was young, when he'd get into fights defending her from the landlord's insults. Firm but gentle. Listen to what I'm telling you. This little girl, she didn't know me. She didn't want anything. She just saw me. Do you understand? She looked at me like I was a person, not a thing to step over. Something shifted in Victor's chest, a feeling he'd killed years ago because feelings were liabilities in his world. What was her name? He asked quietly. I don't know. Her mother called her Mia, I think. They were rushing to catch a train. His mother paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. She reminded me of you, Victor. Of the boy who used to bring home stray cats and share his bread with the homeless man who lived in our alley. Before everything changed. That boy is dead, Mama. Is he? The question hung between them, sharp as a blade. Because when she handed me that sandwich, I saw him again. Just for a second. I saw my son. Victor closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids, memories flickered like old film. His mother singing while cooking with whatever scraps they could afford, teaching him that kindness cost nothing, that being poor didn't mean being cruel. Then other memories. The day he joined the Rossi family at 15, the first time he broke someone's bones for money, the moment he told her he didn't need her anymore because she made him weak. The silence stretched. Where are you living? He finally asked. It doesn't matter. Tell me.
She sighed.
Lincoln Heights. The boarding house on 4th. Room 4C. Lincoln Heights. The worst part of the city, where even the rats left because there was nothing to eat. Victor's free hand curled into a fist. You're moving.
Tonight.
I'll send. No, her voice was steel now. I didn't call for money or help, Victor. I called because that little girl gave me something I'd lost.
Hope.
She showed me that kindness still exists, even in this ugly world we've made. She paused. I wanted you to know that. I wanted you to know that somewhere out there, someone is raising their child right, teaching them to see people like me, like I used to see you. The words hit harder than any punch Victor had ever taken. Mama, let me help you. Please. You want to help? She laughed, but it was sad, hollow. Find that little girl. Thank her for me. And maybe remember who you used to be. Even if it's just for a minute. The line went dead. Victor sat in the darkness of his office, the phone still pressed to his ear, listening to nothing. Outside his window, the city glittered with 1,000 lights, each one representing someone's life, someone's choice, someone's soul being bought or sold or broken. Somewhere out there was a little girl named Mia who'd given his mother a sandwich. And for the first time in 3 decades, Victor Leone felt something besides anger. He felt shame. He pressed the intercom button. Marcus. Get in here. The door opened immediately. Marcus stepped inside, reading his boss's expression with the skill of someone who'd survived 10 years at his side. Find a girl, Victor said, his voice empty of emotion. 8 years old. Name is Mia. Uses the 10th Street subway with her mother. Evening commute. I want her address by morning. Marcus nodded. Should I ask why? Victor looked at him with eyes that had suddenly gone very old. Because I owe her a thank you. Morning light cut through the blinds of Victor's office like knives. He hadn't slept. Hadn't even tried. Instead, he'd spent the night staring at his phone, replaying his mother's voice, dissecting every word like it was a coded message from an enemy. Except this wasn't an enemy. This was the woman who'd raised him on nothing but love and expired bread. The woman he'd abandoned because weakness had no place in his world. At 6:47 a.m., Marcus entered without knocking, the only person with that privilege. Found her, Marcus said, dropping a thin folder on the desk.
Mia Chen.
8 years old. Lives in Riverside Apartments, Building C, Unit 307. Mother's name is Sarah Chen. Works 2 jobs, diner waitress and overnight cleaning crew at the hospital. Victor opened the folder. Inside was a school photo, a little girl with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile that reminded him of sunshine, if sunshine could be a person. Dark hair pulled into pigtails. Wearing a shirt that had been washed so many times the color had faded to almost nothing. Father? Victor asked.
Gone.
Left when the kid was 3. No child support, no contact. Mother's been doing it alone ever since. Marcus paused. They're barely making it, boss. 2 months behind on rent. Landlord's been threatening eviction. Victor's jaw tightened. Anything else? Kid goes to Riverside Elementary. Straight A's despite missing school, sometimes to help her mother. Teachers say she's special. Shares her lunch with other kids who don't have any. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Sound familiar? Victor ignored the comment. He studied the photograph. This tiny girl who'd done what armies of men couldn't, made him feel something other than cold calculation. The mother know anything about last night? About my mother? Doubt it. Far as we can tell, the kid just gave away her sandwich and moved on. No big deal to her. Marcus crossed his arms. What's the play here, Victor? You planning to send the money? Pay off their debts? Because I gotta say, this isn't exactly our usual. I'm going to thank her. The words landed in the room like a grenade. Marcus stared.
You're.
What? The girl showed my mother kindness. I'm going to thank her for it. Victor closed the folder, his decision made. Today. Victor, Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice to the tone he used when trying to talk his boss out of something catastrophically stupid. Think about this. You show up at some family's apartment building with your face, your reputation. You'll terrify everyone within 6 blocks. The mother will think you're there to hurt them. The kid will have nightmares. This isn't. I don't care. You should. Marcus planted his hands on the desk. You're Victor Leone. You know what that name means? It means people cross the street when they see you coming. It means mothers use you as a bedtime threat to scare their kids straight. You can't just show up and say, thanks for the sandwich, like you're some normal person bringing cookies to the neighbors. Victor stood slowly, his 6'3" frame unfolding like a weapon. But when he spoke, his voice was quiet. Dangerous. That little girl saw my mother, really saw her, when everyone else stepped over her like trash. She gave away her food without hesitation, without wanting anything back. He met Marcus's eyes. When's the last time anyone did something for us without an angle? Without fear or greed or desperation? Marcus said nothing. Exactly. Victor grabbed his coat. I'm going. You're driving. Boss. And Marcus? Victor paused at the door. Bring 3 more men. I don't want to look like a threat. I want to look respectful. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. In 10 years, he'd seen Victor do impossible things. Survive assassination attempts. Negotiate treaties with cartels. Expand their territory through sheer force of will and strategic brutality. But this was something else entirely. This was Victor trying to be human again. This is a mistake, Marcus muttered, but he was already pulling out his phone. 20 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled out of the underground garage. Victor sat in the back, silent, staring at the photograph of a little girl who had no idea what she'd set in motion. Behind them, 3 more cars followed, each carrying men who'd killed for Victor, who'd die for him, who were now utterly confused about why they were driving to a rundown apartment building to thank an 8-year-old for a sandwich. The city blurred past the tinted windows. Victor's mind raced. What would he say? How did you thank someone for reminding you that you used to be human? That underneath the scars and the blood and the reputation, there was still some small part of you that remembered what kindness felt like. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but he knew who it was. His mother had only one number saved. Don't scare her. She's just a child. Victor typed back, I know. Another text came immediately. Do you? Because the man I spoke to last night sounded like my son. But the man who'll walk through that door might be someone else entirely. Victor stared at the words for a long time. Then he powered off his phone. Marcus, he said as they turned onto Riverside Avenue. When we get there, I go in alone. Absolutely not. That's an order. Marcus met his eyes in the rear-view mirror. Then I'm disobeying it. Because if something happens to you, your mother loses you again. And after 32 years, I don't think she could survive that twice. Victor almost smiled. Almost.
Fine.
But you stay in the hallway. And Marcus? He looked out the window at the broken neighborhood coming into view. If I can't find the right words, if I make this worse somehow, get me out of there before I do any more damage.
Deal.
The Mercedes pulled up to Building C. And Victor Leone, the most feared man in the city, hesitated before opening the car door. Mrs. Patterson saw them first. She was watering her plants on the second-floor balcony when the black Mercedes glided into the parking lot like a shark entering shallow water. 3 more cars followed, parking in perfect formation. Her watering can slipped from her fingers and shattered on the concrete below. "Holy Mary, Mother of God," she whispered. The doors opened. Men in dark suits emerged, 4 of them, moving with the coordinated precision of people who'd done violent things together. But it was the man who stepped out of the Mercedes that made Mrs. Patterson's blood turn cold. Victor Leone. Even people who'd never seen him knew his face. It had been on the news enough times, always in the background of crime scene photos, always just outside the reach of the law. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through his dark hair. A face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so terrifyingly empty. "Jimmy!" Mrs. Patterson screamed toward her apartment. "Call the police. Call everyone." Within minutes, the news spread through Building C like fire through dry grass. Faces appeared in windows. Doors cracked open. Someone on the 4th floor started crying. Nobody came outside. Victor stood in the parking lot, looking up at the building. It was worse than he'd imagined. Crumbling brick, rust-stained balconies, broken playground equipment in what used to be a courtyard. This was where the girl who'd saved his mother lived. This was where kindness survived despite the world's best efforts to kill it. "3rd floor," Marcus said quietly beside him. "Unit 307. We taking the elevator?" Victor looked at the elevator, a metal cage covered in graffiti and suspicious stains. "Stairs." They moved toward the entrance. Mr. Chin from Unit 101 slammed his door so hard the frame cracked. Mrs. Rodriguez pulled her children back from the window, whispering prayers in Spanish. Inside the stairwell, the fluorescent lights flickered like dying heartbeats. Victor's footsteps echoed, each one a countdown to something he couldn't quite name. Behind him, Marcus and 2 other men followed at a respectful distance. The 4th stayed with the cars. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. Unit 307 was at the end of the hallway. Victor stopped 10 feet from the door, suddenly uncertain. What was he doing? Marcus was right. This was insane. He was a monster trying to thank an angel. The girl would take one look at him and understand what nightmares looked like in daylight. But before he could turn back, the apartment door flew open. Sarah Chin stood there, holding Mia behind her with one arm. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce, the kind of fierce that came from years of protecting the one thing in the world that mattered. "I don't know what you want," Sarah said, voice shaking but steady. "But my daughter has nothing to do with whatever business you think we have. We're nobody. We have nothing." Victor opened his mouth. No words came out. Mia peeked around her mother's hip. Her eyes went wide when she saw Victor, but not with fear. With curiosity. "Mama, that's a lot of men," Mia whispered, not quietly enough. Inside. Now, Sarah tried to pull her back, but Mia was already stepping forward. "Did we do something wrong?" Mia asked, tilting her head. "Because if it's about the sandwich, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was against the rules to give away food." Something in Victor's chest cracked. "No," he managed, his voice rough. "You didn't do anything wrong." Sarah's grip on Mia tightened. "Then why are you here? Why are all of you here?" Victor looked at this woman. This mother working 2 jobs, raising a child in poverty, somehow teaching her daughter to be generous when the world had given them nothing but hardship. She was braver than half the men who worked for him. "Yesterday," Victor said slowly, "your daughter gave a sandwich to an elderly woman at the subway entrance." Sarah blinked, confused. Yes? Mia does that sometimes. She has a big heart. That woman was my mother." The hallway went silent. Sarah's expression shifted from fear to confusion to something else entirely.
"Your
mother?" "I haven't seen her in 32 years, Victor continued, the words coming easier now. "I didn't know she was living on the streets. Didn't know she was hungry. Didn't know where she was." His eyes found Mia's. "Your daughter did something I should have done decades ago. She saw someone who needed help, and she helped them. No questions. No conditions."
Mia smiled.
"She seemed really hungry." "She was," Victor said quietly. And you fed her. Marcus shifted uncomfortably behind him. Doors along the hallway had cracked open, neighbors listening, trying to understand why a mafia boss was standing in their hallway talking about sandwiches. Sarah's face softened slightly, but suspicion remained. So you came to
What?
say thank you. Victor nodded. With 4 men in suits. He almost smiled. Almost. I'm not very good at normal social interactions. Clearly, Sarah's voice was dry, but less hostile now. She looked at her daughter, then back at Victor.
Well,
You've said your thanks. So, if you wouldn't mind. Wait, Mia interrupted. Is the old lady okay? Did she like the sandwich? Victor's throat tightened. She loved it. She said it reminded her of someone she lost. You? Mia asked. The question landed like a bullet. Yes, Victor whispered. Me. Victor saw the exact moment Sarah's maternal instincts overrode her temporary sympathy. Her face hardened. Thank you for explaining. Now, please leave. Mama, Mia started. Inside. Now, Sarah's tone left no room for argument. She pulled Mia back, already moving to close the door. Victor raised his hand, not threatening, just trying to stop her. But the gesture made Sarah flinch, and that flinch made Victor realize what he actually looked like to her, a dangerous man surrounded by dangerous men, standing outside her home, knowing where her daughter lived. I'm sorry, he said quickly, lowering his hand. I didn't mean to frighten you. Too late, Sarah's voice cracked. Please just go. We won't say anything to anyone. We don't want trouble. The door slammed shut. Victor stood there, staring at the peeling paint on Unit 307, hearing the deadbolt slide into place. Behind it, Sarah's voice was muffled but clear. Pack a bag, baby. We're staying at Aunt Linda's tonight. Marcus touched his arm. Boss. We should leave. But Victor couldn't move. Through the door, he heard Mia's small voice. But Mama. He just wanted to say thank you. Why are we running? Because men like that don't just say thank you, Mia. They want something. They always want something. The words hit Victor like a physical blow. She was right.
of course she was right.
Men like him didn't do kindness. They collected debts. They operated on fear and leverage and the implicit threat of violence. Even when he tried to do something good, something human, all people saw was the monster. Because that's all he'd let himself become. Let's go, Victor said quietly, turning away from the door. They descended the stairs in silence. But as they reached the second-floor landing, Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Patterson's husband, blocked their path. He was 70 if he was a day, with a veteran's cap and shaking hands, but his jaw was set. You leave those people alone, he said, voice wavering but determined. That girl and her mama never hurt nobody. They're good people. Victor met the old man's eyes. I know. Then why are you here? What do you want from them? Nothing, Victor said and meant it. I wanted to thank the child for helping my mother. That's all. Mr. Patterson studied him, looking for the lie. You're Victor Leone. I am. You kill people. I have. The old man's jaw worked. Then you understand why we don't believe you. Victor nodded slowly. I do. He moved to step around him, but paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Patterson, your neighborhood watch reflexes are admirable. The girl is lucky to have neighbors who care. He left the old man standing there, confused. Outside, the parking lot had become a spectacle. People watched from windows, from balconies, from behind parked cars. Some held phones, recording. Victor ignored them all, climbing into the Mercedes. Where to? Marcus asked, starting the engine. Victor sat in silence, watching the building. On the third floor, he could see movement behind the curtains of Unit 307, Sarah packing, preparing to run from a threat that didn't exist. Protecting her daughter from a monster who'd only wanted to say 2 words. Thank you.
Boss.
Marcus prompted. I want eyes on this building, Victor said finally. Discreet. Just watching. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Victor, you can't. Not for them. For their safety. Victor's voice was flat, controlled. Word's going to spread that I came here. that I paid attention to this apartment, which means anyone who wants to get to me might think they're leverage. Marcus went quiet, understanding the logic even if he hated it. I want to know if anyone suspicious comes near this building. Anyone who doesn't belong here. And I want to know about their situation. Victor pulled out the folder again, scanning the details. The mother works 2 jobs and they're still drowning. Find out who they owe. Rent, bills, medical, whatever. I want a complete picture. And then what? I don't know yet. Victor closed the folder. But that girl showed kindness to a stranger when she had nothing to give. The least I can do is make sure the world doesn't punish her for it. The Mercedes pulled away from Riverside Apartments. Inside Unit 307, Mia pressed her face against the window, watching the black cars disappear. He seemed sad, she said quietly. Sarah was stuffing clothes into a duffel bag, hands shaking with adrenaline. Mia, men like that aren't sad. They're dangerous. But Mama, he said the old lady was his mother. And he hasn't seen her in 32 years, Mia turned from the window. That's longer than I've been alive. ×4. Doesn't that make you sad? Sarah stopped packing. She looked at her daughter. This beautiful, innocent child who still believed the best in people, even when those people were literal criminals. Baby, she said gently, kneeling down. The world isn't always as simple as you think. Sometimes bad people do one good thing, and it doesn't make them good. But sometimes good people do one bad thing, and it doesn't make them bad, Mia countered. You said that when I accidentally broke Mrs. Chen's flower pot. Sarah had no answer for that. Outside, in the parking lot, Mrs. Patterson finally picked up the pieces of her shattered watering can, hands still trembling. What did he want? Her husband asked when he returned. She shook her head. I don't know. But whatever it is, those people on the 3rd floor just became very interesting to a very dangerous man. Should we call the police? Mrs. Patterson looked up at Unit 307, where curtains moved in the window. And tell them what? That a criminal came to say thank you? They'd laugh at us. But neither of them laughed. Because they both knew the same truth. In their world, when men like Victor Leone said thank you, someone always ended up paying the price. 3 days later, Sarah's card was declined. She stood at the checkout counter of Martinez Grocery, staring at the card reader's red X like it was a personal insult. Behind her, the line was growing, impatient sighs, shuffling feet, the specific kind of judgment that comes from watching someone count pennies. Try again, Sarah said, voice tight.
Please.
The cashier, a tired woman named Rosa who'd checked out Sarah's groceries for 3 years, swiped the card again. Her expression was sympathetic but helpless. Declined. You got another card, honey? Rosa asked quietly. Sarah's face burned. She had another card. It was also maxed out. She had $17 cash in her wallet and the groceries in front of her, the cheapest versions of everything, store brands only, nothing extra, totaled $43. Let me put some things back. Mama, what's wrong? Mia asked from beside her, clutching a can of soup they didn't really need, but Sarah had added, because Mia loved chicken noodle. Nothing, baby. Just adjusting our list. Sarah started removing items. The fresh vegetables went first, they could survive on frozen. Then the orange juice. The bread that wasn't on sale. The small container of yogurt Mia liked for breakfast. The soup can. Mia watched silently as her mother's face went through emotions she was too young to fully understand but old enough to recognize. Shame, desperation, defeat. Next, someone called from the back of the line. Rosa began removing items from the bags, her movements efficient but kind. Take your time, Sarah.
But there was no time.
Sarah did the math in her head. $17 would buy the pasta, the jar of sauce, the eggs, maybe the milk if she skipped the cheese. They'd make it work. They always made it work. This should do it, Sarah said, voice hollow, pushing forward only 5 items. The total came to $16.37. Sarah handed over the cash, collected her single plastic bag of groceries, and walked toward the exit with her daughter's hand in hers and her dignity somewhere on the floor behind her. She didn't see the man in the baseball cap standing near the produce section, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, it's confirmed," he said quietly. "Mother's broke. Card declined. Had to put half the groceries back." He paused, listening. The kid looked like someone kicked her puppy.
It was.
Actually kind of hard to watch. On the other end, Marcus sighed.
Details.
Everything. $17 cash. That's all she had. Bought pasta, sauce, eggs, milk, and the cheapest loaf of bread in the store. Left with one bag. Another pause. "Boss, these people are drowning. This isn't struggling, this is about to go under. I'll inform him. Stay on them." The man in the baseball cap ended the call and pretended to examine tomatoes while Sarah and Mia exited into the evening air. Outside, Mia was unusually quiet. "I wasn't that hungry anyway," she finally said, squeezing her mother's hand. Sarah stopped walking. Right there on the sidewalk, in front of Martina's grocery, with people streaming past them, she knelt down and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "For what?" Mia's voice was muffled against her mother's shoulder. "For this. For all of this. You shouldn't have to watch your mother count pennies. You shouldn't have to pretend you're not hungry." Sarah's voice cracked. "You should be a kid. You should just be a kid." Mia pulled back, her small hands on her mother's cheeks.
Mama, I'm a kid.
"And you're the best mama in the whole world. Who cares about yogurt?" Sarah laughed, but it came out as a sob. They stayed there for a moment, mother and daughter on a cracked sidewalk, holding onto each other while the world rushed past, too busy to notice one more family breaking under the weight of impossible math. Finally, Sarah stood.
"Come on.
Let's get home before the ice cream place closes." Mia's eyes lit up. "Ice cream? One scoop. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Sarah managed a real smile this time. "Surviving another day. That counts for something." They walked hand in hand toward Riverside Apartments, passing beneath streetlights that flickered on one by one as evening settled over the city. Behind them, the man in the baseball cap followed at a distance, making notes on his phone. He documented their route. The ice cream shop, where Sarah bought Mia a single scoop of vanilla and nothing for herself, insisting she wasn't hungry. The way Mia tried to share every bite and Sarah kept refusing. The smile on the kid's face despite everything. The way Sarah's hands shook when she pulled out her keys at their apartment building. By the time they disappeared inside Unit 307, the man had a complete report ready to send. Rent, 3 months behind. Utilities, disconnection notice. Medical bills, unpaid from emergency room visit 6 months ago. Credit cards, maxed. Bank account, overdrawn. Current cash on hand, 63 cents. Status, critical. He sent the message and waited. The response came 2 minutes later. Full breakdown. Who do they owe and how much? I want names, numbers, and documentation. Tonight. The man in the baseball cap typed back. Understood. But boss, you should know, landlord's planning to file eviction papers tomorrow. They're out of time. 3 debts appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, then we work faster. Inside Unit 307, Sarah tucked Mia into bed and sat on the edge of the mattress they shared. Couldn't afford separate bedrooms, couldn't afford most things that normal families took for granted.
Nana.
Mia said sleepily. Do you think the old lady is okay? The one I gave the sandwich to. Sarah stroked her daughter's hair. I'm sure she is, baby. And her son? The scary one with all the men? Sarah's hand paused. They hadn't talked about that day since they'd come back from Aunt Linda's, who hadn't actually been home, forcing them to return to their apartment after one night in a motel they couldn't afford. What about him? Sarah asked carefully. I hope he's not sad anymore, Mia murmured, already drifting off. Everyone deserves not to be sad. Sarah sat there long after her daughter fell asleep, staring at the eviction notice she'd hidden in her drawer, doing math that wouldn't work no matter how many times she tried it. Outside, in a black car 3 blocks away, Victor Leone read the report on his tablet and felt anger rise in his chest, not at Sarah, not at Mia, but at a world that could break people this good, this kind, this completely. Contact the landlord, he said to Marcus. I want a meeting. Victor, if you strong-arm a landlord, it'll raise questions. People will know you're involved. I don't care. You should. This family can't afford to be connected to you. It'll make their life worse, not better. Victor's jaw clenched because Marcus was right. He was always right about these things. Then we do it quietly, Victor said. Find another way. But that little girl is not losing her home because she gave my mother a sandwich. Marcus nodded slowly.
All right.
But boss, we need to be smart about this. Really smart. Then be smart, Victor said. Just fix it. He looked back at the report, at the numbers that represented a family's desperation, and made a promise to an 8-year-old girl who would never know his name meant anything more than fear. I will not let the world punish you for being good. Victor hadn't been to a church in 27 years. The last time was for Tommy Ricci's funeral, a soldier who'd taken a bullet meant for Victor. They'd given Tommy a full Catholic service, complete with a priest who knew exactly what kind of men filled his pews, but blessed them anyway. Victor remembered sitting in the back, wondering if God could hear prayers from someone with blood on their hands. He decided probably not. But this morning, standing outside St. Anthony's on Maple Street, he found himself walking through the gates anyway. Not for confession or redemption. For his mother. She'd sent him a text at dawn. Public park.
8 Uhr morgens.
Come alone. He'd replied, I'll have security nearby. Her response, then I won't be there. So here he was.
Alone.
In a church courtyard where homeless people slept on benches and pigeons fought over breadcrumbs, waiting for a woman he'd spent 32 years avoiding. She arrived at 8:03. Victor saw her from across the courtyard and barely recognized her. She looked cleaner, healthier. Her coat was newer, not expensive, but intact. Her hair was combed. She walked with less pain in her steps. Mama, he said when she reached him. She stopped 3 feet away, studying his face with the intensity only a mother could manage. You look tired. I don't sleep much. You never did. Even as a boy, she sat on a stone bench beneath an oak tree. Always thinking. Always planning your next move. Victor remained standing, suddenly feeling like a child called to the principal's office. You look better. I found a shelter. Good people running it. They helped me get cleaned up, connected me with some services. She patted the bench beside her.
Seat.
You're making me nervous. He sat, leaving space between them, 32 years of space compressed into 18 inches. For a moment, neither spoke. Around them, the city woke up. Distant traffic, a church bell, someone laughing in the street. Normal sounds. The kind Victor had stopped hearing years ago. I know what you did, his mother said finally. Victor's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're. The apartment building. Riverside Apartments, Unit 307-inch. She turned to look at him directly. You sent men to watch them. Don't lie to me, Victor. I raised you. I know your tells. He met her gaze. I wanted to make sure they were safe. Safe from what? From my world. From people who might think they could use them to get to me, he paused. From consequences they didn't earn. His mother's expression softened slightly. And the landlord? The one who was planning to evict them? Victor said nothing. He suddenly withdrew the eviction notice yesterday, she continued. Claimed it was a bookkeeping error. 3 months of late rent just. Forgiven. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
No, Victor Lid.
She smacked his arm. Not hard, but sharp enough to make her point. I said don't lie to me. Despite everything, Victor almost smiled. He was persuaded that evicting a single mother and child during winter would be bad for business. That's all. Persuaded how? Conversations. Financial incentives. The kind that don't involve breaking bones. Victor's voice was level. Everything was legal, Mama. They'll never know I was involved. His mother was quiet for a long moment. You paid their debts, didn't you? I cleared some obstacles. There's a difference. Is there? She shook her head. Victor, that little girl doesn't need a guardian angel who operates from the shadows. She needs a world that doesn't punish kindness.
Can you give her that?
No, Victor admitted. But I can stop her from being evicted. I can make sure her mother doesn't have to choose between rent and food. I can do that much. And then what? You keep watching them forever? Keep fixing their problems every time the world pushes back. His mother's voice grew firmer. That's not help, Victor. That's control wearing a different mask. The words hit harder than any accusation. Then what do you want me to do? Victor's voice cracked slightly. Walk away? Pretend I never met her? Let them suffer, because my help is tainted. I want you to remember who you used to be. His mother placed her hand on his. Her skin was warm. He'd expected cold. That little girl gave me a sandwich because she saw a person who needed help. She didn't calculate odds. Didn't weigh consequences. She just acted from her heart. I'm not 8 years old, Mama.
No.
You're a 43-year-old man who's forgotten what it feels like to do something good without an angle. Without strategy. Without armor. She squeezed his hand. When's the last time you helped someone because it was right, not because it served a purpose? Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't remember. That child has a cleaner soul than you ever did, his mother said quietly, echoing words she'd spoken on the phone. Even when you were young, even when you were good, you always had that edge. That calculation. But her? She's pure kindness. And you know what terrifies me, Victor? What? That your involvement, no matter how well-intentioned, might be the thing that ruins her. His mother's eyes glistened. Because people like you, we're like storms. We might mean to water the garden, but we end up destroying everything in our path. Victor pulled his hand away, the words cutting deeper than any blade. So you want me to do nothing? I want you to do better. She stood, looking down at him. Help them, yes. But do it the right way. Not through fear or money or men in dark suits. Do it through legitimate means. Anonymous donations. Community programs. Things that don't have your fingerprints on them. I'm trying, Mama. I know. But trying isn't enough when you're carrying a loaded gun. She touched his cheek, the first time she'd done that in over 3 decades. You want to honor what that little girl did for me? Then stop being Victor Leone for just one moment. Be the boy who used to feed stray cats. Be someone worth saving. She walked away, leaving him sitting on that stone bench surrounded by pigeons and the ghosts of better men. Victor sat there for 20 minutes after she left, staring at nothing. Finally, he pulled out his phone and called Marcus. Pull everyone off the surveillance, he said. Full withdrawal. Boss, are you sure? We just do it.
Today.
I don't want anyone within 6 blocks of that family. Silence on the other end. Then, what about their situation? The medical bills, handle it through proper channels. Anonymous donations. Make it look like they won a community assistance lottery or something. Nothing that traces back to us. Nothing that feels like mob money. That's going to be complicated. I don't care. Figure it out. Victor ended the call. He sat there until the sun climbed higher, until the courtyard filled with actual worshippers heading to morning mass, until he could no longer ignore the truth his mother had laid bare. He was trying to save a little girl's innocence with the same hands that had destroyed it in countless others. And maybe some stains didn't wash off, no matter how hard you scrubbed. Sarah found the letter in her mailbox on a Thursday morning. It was plain white, no return address, with her name typed on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper on letterhead from Riverside Community Fund, an organization she'd never heard of. Dear Ms. Chun, congratulations. Your family has been selected as this quarter's recipient of our Emergency Family Assistance Program. After reviewing applications from our community, we are pleased to inform you that the following items have been addressed on your behalf. Outstanding medical debt, paid in full, utility arrears, cleared, 3 months grocery stipend, approved. Additionally, Riverside Elementary has confirmed that Mia Chin has been awarded the Henderson Scholarship for Academic Excellence and Community Spirit, covering all school fees and supplies for the remainder of the academic year. No action is required on your part. These funds are provided by anonymous donors committed to supporting families in our neighborhood. Sincerely, Riverside Community Fund. Sarah read it 3 times. Then she sat down on the hallway floor and cried. The changes came slowly, carefully, like someone painting over rust without disturbing what was underneath. At Riverside Elementary, Principal Morrison called Mia into her office on Friday. "Mia, I have wonderful news," she said, smiling warmly. "Do you know what a scholarship is?" Mia shook her head, nervous about being called to the principal's office for the first time ever. "It's when someone thinks you're special and wants to help you. And someone we don't know who thinks you're very special indeed." Mrs. Morrison handed her a certificate with Mia's name written in beautiful calligraphy. "All your school fees are covered. And look, there's a supply stipend too. That means new notebooks, pencils, whatever you need." Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? Your teacher says you share your supplies with other students a lot. Now you'll have plenty for everyone." Walking home that day, Mia clutched the certificate like treasure. "Mama, look. I got a scholarship. Mrs. Morrison says it's because I have community spirit." Sarah looked at the certificate, then at the letter she'd received that morning, and felt something twist in her chest, relief mixed with suspicion. 2 miracles in 2 days? After months of drowning. That didn't just happen. But when she called the number on the letterhead, a cheerful woman answered. "Riverside Community Fund. How may I help you?" "I received a letter about emergency assistance for my family." "Oh yes. Ms. Chen, correct? Congratulations. Your application was selected from our quarterly pool." "But I didn't submit an application. Community members can nominate families anonymously. It's part of our outreach program. Someone thought your family deserved support, and our board agreed." The woman's voice was bright, genuine. "Is there a problem?" Sarah's throat tightened.
No.
"No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're very welcome. That's what community is for." Sarah hung up, staring at the phone. It felt real. It sounded legitimate. But something in her gut whispered that miracles didn't just fall from the sky, not for people like her. 3 blocks away, in a coffee shop, Marcus sat across from a woman who just answered Sarah's call, a retired social worker named Helen who ran actual community programs and had been very surprised when an anonymous donation of $50,000 appeared in her organization's account with specific instructions. "She believed it?" Marcus asked quietly. Helen stirred her coffee, frowning. "She's suspicious, but yes. Because it's real, Mr. Marcus. That money you donated? It's going to help 5 other families too, just like we promised. This isn't a front. It's a legitimate operation."
Good.
That's what he wanted. "Your employer has an interesting way of doing charity work." Helen's eyes were sharp. "Most people just write a check and move on. He's orchestrating an entire support network. He wants to make sure it's sustainable. That the family doesn't just survive this month, but has actual stability." Marcus pulled out another envelope. "This is for job opportunity. There's a hospital administration position opening up. Better hours than cleaning crew, better pay, benefits. Can you make sure Sarah Chin hears about it?" "Is she qualified?" "She's been working at that hospital for 3 years. She knows the systems, the people, the workflow. She just never had the chance to apply because she's too busy surviving." Marcus slid the envelope across. "All we're doing is opening a door. She still has to walk through it herself." Helen took the envelope, studying him. "Your boss, does he always fix people's lives from the shadows?" "No," Marcus said honestly. "This is new for him. Why this family?" Marcus thought about a little girl with a gap-toothed smile giving away her lunch. About a mafia boss who hadn't slept in days trying to figure out how to help without hurting. About a mother who'd called her son after 32 years because one sandwich reminded her that kindness still existed. Because they reminded him of something he thought he'd lost, Marcus said finally. And he's trying very hard not to destroy it. Over the next 2 weeks, more small changes appeared. The broken playground equipment at Riverside Apartments was repaired by a construction crew that claimed they were training new workers no charge. A food pantry opened in the community center down the street, stocked with actual quality groceries, not expired donations. Sarah got a call about the hospital administration position. She almost didn't apply, convinced she wasn't qualified, certain it was a mistake. But Mia insisted. Mama, you're the smartest person I know. You should try.
She got the interview.
Then the job. When she called to accept, Sarah cried for the third time in 2 weeks. Victor received updates through Marcus, reading them alone in his office like mission reports. Family stabilized. Mother starts new position Monday. No suspicion of outside involvement. Kids thriving in school. Mission successful. He should have felt satisfied. Proud even. He'd helped a family without crushing them under the weight of his reputation. He'd done something good the right way. Instead, he felt empty. Because his mother was right, this wasn't redemption. It was just expensive penance. He could fix problems for one family, maybe 10, maybe 100. But he couldn't fix what he'd broken in himself. Couldn't erase the years of violence and fear and choices that had carved away everything soft until only the weapon remained. That night, Victor dreamed of a little boy feeding stray cats in an alley, sharing bread with homeless men, believing the world could be kind if you were kind first. He woke up knowing that boy was dead. And no amount of anonymous donations would bring him back. In Unit 307, Mia knelt by her window and pressed her hands together. Thank you for helping Mama, she whispered to whatever was listening. God, the universe, luck, fate. And please help that sad man too. The one with all the suits. He looked like he really needed a friend. Outside, 3 blocks away, Victor sat in his car and watched the light in her window. He'd given her stability. She'd given his mother hope. The math would never balance. But for the first time in decades, Victor thought maybe trying to balance it was enough. Dmitry Volkov noticed everything. It was what kept him alive in a business where most men didn't see their 40th birthday. He noticed when shipments arrived 3 minutes late, when soldiers avoided eye contact, when rivals showed weakness. And he'd noticed Victor, Leon, going soft. Tell me again, Dmitry said, leaning back in his chair at the Red Star Club. Around him, his men stood silent, 8 of them, all watching the surveillance photos spread across the table. Yuri, his lieutenant, pointed to the images. 3 weeks ago, Leon visits this apartment building. Riverside, the poor side. Stays 20 minutes, brings 4 men, leaves looking. Different. Different how? Shaken. Human. Yuri pulled up another photo on his tablet. Then, he pulls all his operations back. Cancels 2 major deals. Starts moving money around weird, small amounts, lots of transfers, all going to community organizations and charities. Dmitry picked up a photo of Victor standing in the parking lot, staring up at a building that looked ready to collapse. Victor Leon doesn't do charity. That's what we thought. So we dug deeper. Yuri swiped through more images. Single mother, Sarah Chen. 8-year-old daughter, Mia. They live in Unit 307, same unit Leon visited. Mother just got a new job. Rent, debt, mysteriously forgiven. Medical bills paid. Kid gets a scholarship. Leon's paying their bills? Dmitry's eyes narrowed. Why? We don't know. But it gets weirder. He's been meeting with his mother, Elena Leon. No contact for over 30 years. Suddenly they're having coffee in church courtyards. Dmitry went still. His mother? I thought she was dead. Apparently not. Living in shelters, borderline homeless. Now suddenly she's got housing, healthcare, whole support system. Yuri leaned forward. Boss, something happened. Something that made Leon remember he had a mother. And it connects to this family. Dmitry studied the photos of Mia, school pictures, playground shots, walking home with her mother. Just a kid. Nothing special. Except Victor Leon, the man who'd controlled the South Port for 15 years, was apparently obsessed with her welfare. What's the connection between the girl and the mother? Working on it. But whatever it is, Leon's distracted. The Morano family already tried to move on his dockyard operations last week. Normally, he'd have crushed them in 48 hours. Instead, he negotiated. Gave up 2 contracts without a fight. Victor Leon doesn't negotiate, Dmitry said slowly. He dominates.
Exactly.
Which means He's vulnerable. Dimitri's mind raced through possibilities. And if he's vulnerable, we can finally move on his territory. The routes he controls, the judges he owns, the whole southern corridor. One of Dimitri's men, Alexei, cleared his throat. Boss, if we move on Leon, it starts a war. He still has 300 soldiers, connections with the Italians, and enough firepower to level half the city. Only if he's willing to use it. Dimitri tapped the photo of Mia. But a man who's rediscovering his conscience? Who's pulling back from deals, making peace instead of war, spending his time arranging scholarships. He smiled coldly. That's not the Victor Leon we need to fear. That's a man who's already half defeated himself. So, what's the play? Yuri asked. Dimitri was quiet, thinking. The smart move was to hit Leon's operations while he was distracted, seize territory, disrupt supply lines, force him to react. But the smarter move. Find out exactly what this family means to him, Dimitri said. I want to know every detail. How he found them. Why he cares. What leverage they represent. You think they're important enough to use? I think a man doesn't reorganize his entire operation around strangers for no reason. Dimitri stood, gathering the photos. Victor Leon built an empire on fear. But fear only works when you have nothing left to lose. The moment you care about something, the moment you have something to protect, he smiled. That's when you become weak. We going to grab them? Alexei asked. Use them as leverage.
No.
Not yet. Leon's watching them, which means they're protected. We move too obvious. We start a war we might not win. Dimitri paced to the window, overlooking the city. But if we're patient, if we wait for the right moment, we can use his own conscience against him. Make him choose between his empire and his.
What?
Redemption? Humanity. He'll choose his empire, Yuri said confidently. Maybe. But the hesitation, the moment of doubt, that's all we need to strike. Dimitri turned back to his men. Put watchers on the family. Discreet. I want to know their routines, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. Don't touch them. Don't even get close. Just observe. And Leon. Let him think he's being noble. Let him think he can walk away from what he is. Dimitri's smile turned predatory. Because the moment he realizes he can't protect them and hold his empire, the moment he understands that trying to be good is going to get them hurt, that's when Victor Leon breaks. And that's when we take everything he has. The meeting ended. Men dispersed into the night with orders and photographs, and the scent of opportunity. None of them noticed the teenager on the corner across the street, 17, hood up, seemingly absorbed in his phone. But Danny Reeves wasn't playing games. He was recording. Every word that came through the window had been caught by the directional microphone hidden in his backpack. Danny waited 5 minutes after the last man left the Red Star Club. Then he pulled out a different phone, a burner, untraceable, and sent a single text to a number he'd been told to use only in emergencies. They know about the family. Planning surveillance. Talk about using them as leverage against VL when time is right. The response came 90 seconds later. Good work. Pull back. Do not engage further. Your payment will arrive tomorrow. Danny pocketed both phones and disappeared into the subway. 3 miles away, Marcus read the message and felt ice form in his chest. He was sitting in a diner, halfway through a coffee that had gone cold, preparing to tell Victor that the community fund had successfully helped 2 more families that week. Good news. Evidence that they were making a real difference through legitimate means. Instead, he was reading about Dmitry Volkov planning to weaponize a little girl. Marcus paid his bill and walked his car, mind calculating probabilities and outcomes. He could hide this from Victor. Increase security around the family without telling him why. Handle the threat quietly, the way he'd handled 1,000 threats before. But lying to Victor about a threat to someone he cared about, that was a different kind of dangerous. Marcus drove to Victor's office, rehearsing how to deliver news that would either save a family or destroy everything Victor had been trying to build. By the time he arrived, he still hadn't found the right words. Because there were no right words for telling a man that his attempt to do something good had just painted a target on an innocent child. Victor read the message 3 times before he spoke. When did this come in? 40 minutes ago. Marcus stood across the desk, watching his boss's face for signs of the explosion he knew was coming. Danny's reliable. If he says Volkov's planning something, he is. Victor set down his phone with controlled precision, the kind of control that came before violence, not instead of it. Volkov wants to use them as leverage. That's the implication, yes. A child. An 8-year-old child who gave my mother a sandwich. Victor's voice was perfectly flat. Emotionless. Which was more terrifying than rage. And Dmitri thinks I'll hesitate because of her. Will you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Victor stood and walked to the window. Below, the city pulsed with life. Millions of people making choices, most of them small, some of them catastrophic. A month ago, he'd been one of them. Another predator in an ecosystem built on predation. Then a little girl had reminded him that people could still be kind. And now she was in danger because of it. Call in everyone, Victor said quietly. Every soldier, every captain, every man who owes me loyalty. I want full mobilization by midnight. Marcus's stomach dropped. Victor, if you go to war with Volkov over this. He threatened a child, Marcus. He hasn't touched her. He's just watching, gathering information. We can handle this quietly. Increase security, relocate the family, make them disappear where Volkov can't. And then what? Victor turned from the window. I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone else noticed? If the Morano family decides to try the same play? If every two-bit gangster in the city realizes that the way to hurt me is to hurt innocent people? So, your solution is to start a war that'll get dozens of people killed? That'll put that family in even more danger? Marcus stepped closer. Think this through. You go after Volkov hard enough, he'll retaliate. And his first target will be exactly what he's already watching, that apartment building. That little girl. Victor's hands clenched into fists. Then what do you suggest? Walk away. The words landed like a gunshot. What? Walk away, Marcus repeated, voice steady. From the family. From your mother. From this whole redemption fantasy. Go back to being Victor Leone, the man nobody threatens because everyone's too terrified to try. Volkov's only moving because he thinks you're weak. Prove him wrong. Show the whole city that your moment of humanity was temporary. That you're still the same monster you've always been. And abandon them? Leave them vulnerable? They were vulnerable before you got involved. They're more vulnerable now because you made them interesting. Marcus's voice was brutal with honesty. Your mother was right, boss. You're a storm. You meant to water the garden, but all you did was paint a target on it. Victor felt something crack inside his chest. Because Marcus was right. Again. Always right about these things. Every instinct screamed at him to hit back. To show Volkov what happened when you threatened something Victor Leone cared about. To remind the city that kindness didn't make him weak. It made him more dangerous, because now he had something to protect. But that's exactly what Volkov wanted. A war. Chaos. Victor distracted and emotional, making mistakes, leaving openings in his territory, while he played bodyguard to a family he barely knew. There's a third option, Victor said slowly. Marcus waited. I dismantle my empire. Not piece by piece. All at once, Victor turned back to the window, watching lights flicker like dying stars. I negotiate surrenders with everyone I'm in conflict with. I pull out of every illegal operation. I transfer legitimate holdings to shells and disappear. Give Volkov and everyone else exactly what they want, my territory, without the fight. You're talking about walking away from everything you built. I'm talking about not getting people killed because I tried to remember how to be human. Victor's voice was hollow. My mother said that people like me are storms that destroy everything we touch. Maybe she's right. Maybe the only way to protect them is to stop being the thing that makes them targets. Victor, how long would it take? To liquidate operations, transfer assets, broker peace deals with every family that wants a piece of my territory. Marcus did the math in his head. If we moved fast, offered generous terms, maybe 2 weeks. 3 if we hit complications.
Do it.
Start tonight. Victor pulled out his phone. And pull all surveillance on the Chin family immediately. I want zero connection between us and them. Nothing Volkov can trace. Boss, if we pull protection now and Volkov moves. Why would he move? He's watching them because he thinks they matter to me. If I give him everything he wants without a fight, if I disappear, they stop being useful leverage. Victor's logic was sound, even if his voice wasn't. No target. No value. Just another struggling family in a city full of them. Marcus studied his boss, this man who'd survived assassination attempts, cartel negotiations, federal investigations, who'd built an empire through calculated brutality and strategic genius, and who is now choosing to burn it all down rather than risk an 8-year-old girl's life. You know you can't come back from this, Marcus said quietly. You give up your territory, your reputation, your power. You're just another former player. No protection.
No le verí.
Anyone with a grudge can come after you. I know. And your mother? She'll still be vulnerable. More so, without your organization backing her safety. I'll move her somewhere safe. Far from here. New identity, new life. Victor pulled up a contact on his phone. You too, Marcus. Everyone who's loyal to me. I'll make sure you land somewhere good. New city, new opportunity, clean break. I'm not leaving, Marcus said flatly. This isn't the negotiation. Neither is this, Marcus crossed his arms. You think I followed you for 10 years because of money? Because of power? I stayed because underneath all the violence and strategy, you were the only boss in this business who had a code.
Who drew lines.
Who never hurt kids or civilians unless there was no choice. He paused. That little girl reminded you who you were. But boss, I already knew. And I'm not abandoning you just because you're finally making the right choice. Victor's throat tightened. This is going to get ugly. Everything we do gets ugly. At least this time it's for something that matters. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Outside, the city continued its endless cycle. People living, dying, making choices they'd regret or celebrate or forget by morning. Start the process, Victor said finally. Full liquidation. Peace at any price. I want to be out and gone in 2 weeks. Marcus nodded and turned to leave. And Marcus. He stopped at the door. Thank you, Victor said quietly, for staying when you should run. Someone's got to keep you from becoming completely sentimental, Marcus said with the ghost of a smile. Now, let's burn down your empire before I change my mind.
The door closed.
Victor stood alone in his office, watching the city that had been his kingdom for 15 years. In 2 weeks, it would belong to someone else. His power, his reputation, his identity, all of it would be gone. All because a little girl had given his mother half a sandwich. He thought about calling his mother, telling her he'd finally understood her warning. Instead, he pulled up the photo of Mia from the folder Marcus had compiled, that gap-toothed smile, those bright eyes that still saw good in a world that had tried very hard to teach her otherwise. You win, he whispered to the photograph. You're more powerful than I ever was. And you don't even know it. Then Victor Leone began the complicated process of erasing himself from existence. Because some souls were too pure to survive his protection. And maybe walking away was the only real kindness he had left to give. 12 days later, Victor stood at Union Station at dawn. His empire was gone, divided among 5 different families who'd been shocked when Victor Leone, the man who'd never surrendered an inch of territory in 15 years, offered them everything on a silver platter. The dockyard operations went to the Morano family. The gambling networks to Chinwei's organization. Protection rackets dissolved entirely. Businesses returned to legitimate owners with legal contracts. Dmitry Volkov got the Eastern Corridor without firing a single shot. The underworld was still reeling, trying to understand what had happened. Theories ranged from terminal illness to federal witness protection to elaborate strategy no one could decode yet. Only 3 people knew the truth: Victor, Marcus, and his mother. And now, standing on Platform 7 with a single suitcase containing everything that mattered, which turned out to be almost nothing, Victor was about to say goodbye to the city that had made him a monster. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Cars are ready. Your mother's secure at the safe house. New identities processed. We're clear. Victor typed back, one more thing. Give me 30 minutes. Boss, we need to move. Volkov's people are asking questions. 30 minutes. He pocketed the phone and walked out of the station. Riverside Elementary was 6 blocks away. Victor knew the schedule by heart, even though he'd stopped surveillance 2 weeks ago. School started at 8:15. Kids arrived between 7:45 and 8:10. Mia and her mother always walked together, arriving around 7:55. He waited across the street behind a newspaper box, watching the morning stream of families. Parents looking tired. Kids looking excited or anxious or half asleep. Normal life, playing out like it did every day, completely unaware that a man who'd killed people was standing nearby trying to memorize what innocence looked like. At 7:53, he saw them. Sarah Chun looked different, less exhausted, more hopeful. The new job was working out. She wore business casual clothes instead of her cleaning uniform. She was smiling at something Mia was saying. And Mia was laughing. Actually laughing, her backpack bouncing, new sneakers bright against the sidewalk. She was talking animatedly, hands gesturing, probably telling some story that only 8-year-olds found compelling. They reached the school gate. Sarah knelt down, said something Victor couldn't hear. Mia nodded, hugged her mother tight, then ran toward the entrance where other kids were gathering. She turned back once, waving. Sarah waved back, watching until her daughter disappeared inside. Then she stood there for another minute, just a mother, watching a building, making sure. Finally, she turned and walked toward the bus stop, pulling out her phone to check the time. She passed within 15 feet of Victor and never knew he was there. When she was gone, Victor closed his eyes and let himself feel the weight of what he'd just witnessed. A normal morning. A happy child. A mother who wasn't drowning anymore. No fear.
Nos a dos.
No men in dark suits. Just life continuing because he'd chosen to step out of it. This is what winning looks like, he thought. Not territory or money or power. This. Just this. He pulled out an envelope from his pocket, the last thing he'd prepared before leaving. Inside was a note, handwritten on simple paper. No letterhead, no signature that could be traced. The note said, Dear Mia, you don't know me, but I know you. A few weeks ago, you gave someone very important to me a sandwich when she was hungry. You didn't have to. You just did it because you saw someone who needed help. That was the kindest thing anyone has done in a very long time. It reminded me that good people still exist. That kindness isn't weakness. That sometimes the smallest actions matter more than the biggest ones. I can't thank you properly, and I can't be part of your life. But I want you to know that what you did saved more than one person that day. You saved someone who'd forgotten how to be saved. Never stop being who you are. The world needs people like you more than it needs people like me. Thank you for the sandwich. And thank you for being you. A friend. Victor walked to the school's main office, where parents often dropped off forgotten lunches or permission slips. He handed the envelope to the receptionist. This is for Mia Chun, he said. 3rd grade. Can you make sure she gets it? The receptionist, a kind-faced woman in her 60s, took the envelope. Of course. Are you her? Just a friend of the family, Victor said. Wanted to send her some encouragement. She smiled. That's sweet. She's a wonderful little girl. Always helping others. I know, Victor said quietly. That's why she deserves encouragement. He turned and walked out before the receptionist could ask anything else. By the time Mia got the note during afternoon break, Victor was on a train heading west. She read it 3 times, then ran to show her teacher. Mrs. Anderson. Look. Someone wrote me a thank you note for the sandwich. Mrs. Anderson read it, smiling. That's lovely, Mia. You should show your mother. I will. Do you think I'll meet them someday? The friend who wrote this. Mrs. Anderson looked at the unsigned note, at the careful handwriting that seemed to carry weight beyond words. Maybe, sweetie. Or maybe some friends help us from far away. That can be just as special. Mia carefully folded the note and put it in her backpack's front pocket, right next to the scholarship certificate. She didn't know that the man who wrote it was currently watching farmland blur past his train window, leaving behind everything he'd built, everyone he'd known, the only identity he'd had for 43 years. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness had dismantled a criminal empire. She didn't know that somewhere, an elderly woman was starting a new life in a small coastal town, finally able to sleep without fear, holding a photo of her son and whispering prayers for his safety. She just knew that someone had noticed her kindness. And in Mia's world, that was magic enough. Marcus met Victor at the station in Asheville, North Carolina. Your mother settled in Oak Ridge. Small town, quiet. She's got a little apartment near the beach. She says to tell you she's proud of you. Victor nodded, unable to speak. And the Chin family? They're safe. Volkov lost interest the day you handed him your territory. As far as he's concerned, they were never anything but civilians. Good, Victor's voice was rough. That's good. So, what now? Marcus asked. We got new names, new lives, clean slates. What does Victor Leone do when he's not Victor Leone anymore? Victor thought about a little girl's laughter, about his mother's smile, about the weight he'd been carrying for 32 years finally lifting. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I figure out who I was supposed to be before everything went wrong. That's a pretty big maybe, boss. Yeah, Victor picked up his suitcase. But I've got time now. And for the first time in decades, nobody's trying to kill me for it. They walked out of the station into morning sunlight. Behind them, a train pulled away, heading back to the city that had forgotten Victor Leone existed. Ahead, the mountains rose like possibilities. And somewhere between who he'd been and who he might become, Victor found himself almost smiling. Because an 8-year-old girl had taught him the most important lesson he'd ever learned. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the strongest choice is letting go. Sometimes saving someone means disappearing from their life completely. The sandwich had cost 50 cents and changed everything. And that, Victor thought, was the closest thing to magic he'd ever witnessed. 6 months later, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Riverside Community Center happened on a perfect spring morning. Sarah stood near the back of the crowd, holding Mia's hand, watching the mayor give a speech about community investment and grassroots initiatives and other phrases that sounded important but didn't quite capture what this building meant. What it meant was hope. The center occupied an old warehouse that had been empty for years, right across from the subway entrance where this whole thing had started. Now it was renovated, bright paint, big windows, warmth spilling out onto the sidewalk. Inside was a food pantry that stayed stocked, a medical clinic that didn't ask about insurance, a job training program, a homework help center, and most importantly, a shelter specifically for elderly people who'd fallen through society's cracks. Mama, can we go inside? Mia asked, bouncing on her toes. In a minute, baby. Let them finish the speeches. But Mia was already reading the plaque beside the entrance, her lips moving silently as she worked through the words. Sarah watched her daughter, this beautiful, stubborn, impossibly kind child who still gave away half her lunch to classmates who forgot theirs. Some things never changed. The center's director, Helen Morrison, took the microphone. This facility exists because of anonymous donors who believed our community deserved better. People who understood that kindness isn't charity, it's investment in each other's humanity. The crowd applauded. We'll be serving lunch in 15 minutes, Helen continued. Everyone's welcome. That's our motto. Everyone's welcome. No questions, no judgment, no paperwork. Just people helping people. The ribbon was cut. The crowd surged forward. Sarah let Mia pull her inside, into the bright lobby that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Volunteers were setting up lunch tables. Elderly people were already arriving, looking uncertain, as if expecting this to be too good to be true. And there, sitting in a chair near the window, was the old woman. Mia saw her first.
Mama.
That's her. The sandwich lady. Before Sarah could respond, Mia had darted across the room. Sarah followed, heart in her throat, watching her daughter kneel beside the elderly woman whose face transformed from tired to radiant in seconds. Mia said breathlessly, "Do you remember me? From the subway stairs? I gave you my sandwich." The old woman, Elena, though Sarah didn't know her name yet, reached out with trembling hands and cupped Mia's face. "Sweet child. Of course I remember. You gave me much more than a sandwich that day. Are you doing okay? Are you hungry? They have food here now. Lots of food. And nobody has to sit on cold stairs anymore." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm doing much better, thank you. And this place," she looked around the center, voice thick with emotion. "This place is a miracle." Sarah approached slowly. "Ma'am, I'm Sarah, Mia's mother. I'm glad you're all right. My daughter talks about you sometimes." "Does she?"
Elena smiled.
"She saved my life, you know. Not just with food. With hope." "She has a gift for that," Sarah said softly. They talked for a few minutes, small talk about the center, the programs, how Elena had found housing nearby. Nothing deep. Nothing that explained the gratitude radiating from the old woman, or the way she kept looking at Mia, like she was something precious. When they finally moved toward the lunch line, Elena stopped Mia one more time. "Can I tell you a secret?" Mia's eyes went wide. "Okay. That day you helped me? I called my son afterward. Someone I hadn't spoken to in many, many years. And because of you, because of your kindness, I got my family back." Elena's voice cracked. "So, thank you. For giving an old woman more than a sandwich. For giving her a reason to hope." "Where's your son now?" Mia asked. "Did he come here too?" Elena's smile turned bittersweet. "He's far away. Living a different life. But he's happy. And he's good. And that's all a mother can ask for." "Will he visit?" "Maybe someday. But right now, he's exactly where he needs to be." Elena touched Mia's cheek one last time. "Just like you are, sweet girl. Just like you are." 400 miles away, in a small town in North Carolina, Victor sat in a community garden pulling weeds. It was honest work. Simple work. The kind of work that left dirt under his fingernails and made his back ache and didn't require him to hurt anyone. He'd been volunteering here for 3 months now, ever since Marcus had found him a job at a local construction company. The pay was terrible compared to his old life. The work was hard. His coworkers had no idea who he used to be. It was perfect. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother, who'd learned to use smartphones with the enthusiasm of someone making up for lost time. "The center opened today. It's beautiful, Victor. Wish you could see it." Another text followed, this one a photo. Mia, beaming at the camera, holding a plate of food, standing beside Elena. Victor stared at the image until his vision blurred. "She's volunteering there now," his mother's text continued. "Every Saturday. Still feeding people. Still sharing everything she has. The world hasn't broken her yet." Victor typed slowly. "Good.
Keep her that way."
"I'm trying. This place will help. So many people here now, getting second chances. Getting seen. That's what you deserve, Mama."
To be seen.
3 disappeared, appeared again. "Finally. I see you too, son. Every day. In every person this center helps. You did this. You chose this." Victor's throat tightened. "I chose them. There's a difference." "No, baby. You chose to be better. They just reminded you how." He put down the phone and returned to his weeding, letting the spring sun warm his shoulders, letting the simple rhythm of work clear his mind. That night, he'd go home to his small apartment above the hardware store. He'd make dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta. He'd read before bed. Maybe call Marcus, who was learning to run a legitimate security consulting business and complaining about how boring legal work was. It was a small life. A quiet life. A life where nobody feared him, nobody owed him. Nobody died because he made a choice. It was everything he'd never known he wanted. Back in the city, Mia finished her volunteer shift at the community center by reading to a group of elderly residents. She chose Charlotte's Web, her favorite, and did all the character voices, making everyone laugh. When she left, walking home with her mother through streets that felt safer now, lighter somehow, She pulled out the note she still carried everywhere. The unsigned thank you letter from 6 months ago. Mama, do you think I'll ever meet the person who wrote this? Sarah looked at her daughter, at the note she'd read 100 times, at the kindness that seemed to follow this child like a blessing. I don't know, baby. Maybe. Maybe not. I hope they're okay, Mia said, carefully refolding the note. They seemed sad when they wrote this. Like they needed a friend. I'm sure wherever they are, Sarah said, squeezing her daughter's hand. They're doing just fine. People like that, people who notice kindness, they find their way eventually. Good, Mia said, satisfied. Everyone deserves to be happy. They walked home through the city that kept spinning, kept breaking, kept healing. Where kindness still happened despite everything. Where one sandwich could change everything. Where a little girl's simple act of humanity had dismantled an empire, reunited a family, and saved souls that had been lost so long they'd forgotten they needed saving. The debt wasn't just repaid. It was multiplied, scattered like seeds across a city full of people who still remembered that underneath all the fear and violence and survival, we're all just human, all just hungry, all just hoping someone will see us and decide we matter enough to share their sandwich. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, that sandwich changes everything.